Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and these are your sun and rising sign horoscopes for the month of July 2020. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. There's a couple of big transits this month, 3 of them that I'm going to be breaking down. There's a lot of action happening across the Cancer and Capricorn axis. So that's one big chunk of what we're going to look at. There's a ongoing Mercury-Mars square in the month of July that's pretty dynamic. We'll take a look at that. And then Venus is square to Neptune, which happens toward the end of the month. So let's go ahead and take a look and start with Capricorn. Now, if you're Capricorn rising, Capricorn sun sign, on the 4th of July, you've got the lunar eclipse happening in your home sign and first house. That means that the change is very personal right now. It has to do with health. It has to do with appearance. It has to do with your sense of who you are and what your direction is in life in a very general sense. So first house transits are about a reorientation of our identity in the world. And then that action in the first house is also coupled with tension in the 7th house, a new moon in Cancer on the 20th, and then a long series of oppositions from the Sun to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn between the 12th and the 21st. That's placing a lot of pressure on you across the axis of self and then other or intimate relationships. Could also be, in a general sense, your social identity versus who you are as an individual. And there could also be needs placed on you from your relationships right now that are, at odds with a feeling of needing to be more self-sufficient, or even a feeling of being more stoic or self-reliant, and the emotional needs that are being asked of you or placed on you from others or from family members, even with Cancer so involved. Now, that's the story of the month. A lot of stress and tension, and these are cardinal signs, so there's changes happening. And this has been going like this for you for like a year and a half, with eclipses happening in these signs of Cancer and Capricorn. Now, between about the 7th and 8th of the month, you're going to see Mercury in Cancer through its retrograde get into a square with Mars in your 4th house. This is the place, the 4th house, of home, family, and roots. You get a long time of having Mars in the 4th house of home, family, property, land. And with Mercury in the 7th house, this definitely amplifies the theme that I already mentioned, which is the potential for there to be more stress and tension coming from your relationships with other people and from your home and family, not just this month, but sort of for the rest of the year. And, as a Capricorn rising, you tend to be really tenacious and perseverant, and determined, but also much more self-reliant, a little bit more self-contained, and maybe conservative in the way that you use your energy or your time. Some of this could be pretty irritating, this energy for Capricorns. So be careful of emotional volatility, communication dynamics in the family, a more intense, difficult themes coming up around family and your significant others and things like that, or your living environment. This month, especially on the 7th, 8th, and then coming back again on the 27th. Now, by the very end of the month, you've got a Neptune-Venus dynamic. Let me put this up and show you what this is going to look like. So this for you is going to fall between the 6th house and the 3rd house. You got Venus in the sign of Gemini squaring Neptune in the sign of Pisces between the 6th and 3rd places. Now, whenever these two places come up, you're thinking of the house of misfortune, the 6th house, a place that's usually brings up a certain degree of strife or animosity, difficulty, hard work, sacrifice, some of which can really pay off. And they may pay off because Venus is, of course, the goddess of good fortune. But so good things coming through a little bit of turbulence. And then you see the square to Neptune in the 3rd house, which often speaks to the immediate environment, our neighborhood, our closer friends that are like siblings or your siblings, but kind of that immediate space around where you live, and the different, let's just say, the comings and goings, or the hustle and bustle, almost like the subway is to New York City. It's the constant movement around the center, usually the center of the 4th house being your home and your sort of base of operations. So Venus square Neptune can be very frenetic and busy, and a mixture of like joy and blessings coming through a time that's very busy, chaotic, and potentially overwhelming. So that's what I would look for there. And also be careful of the potential to want to try to cut corners or gloss things over that need to be addressed more directly. It'd be very easy to become a little bit passive aggressive this month and try to make the best out of everything, when in doing so, maybe you know, make things worse in the process by not just addressing something directly. So be careful of that energy a little bit this month. All right, so that's if you're a Capricorn rising. Let's roll it back and take a look for Tauruses. Now we're going to go back again to July 4th and take a look at the eclipse in Capricorn. And that eclipse in Capricorn, let's put Taurus on the ascendant here. That eclipse in Capricorn is happening in your 9th house. And that means that the axis of the 3rd and the 9th is going to be emphasized all month. Lunar eclipse in the 9th house means that something is changing for you significantly around the topic of beliefs, of faith, religion, spirituality, higher learning, teachers, and so forth. And then the 3rd house is, you get the lunar eclipse on the 4th in that place. Notice the shift around those topics. It's a time for paradigm changes when eclipses are happening in the 9th house. And then, of course, the opposite house, the 3rd house, you're going to have the new moon in Cancer on the 20th. And then between the 12th and the 21st, the sun in Cancer will oppose all of those planets in the 9th house. Here's the way I like to think about this axis, which I was actually born with because I'm a Taurus rising and I have my sun and moon literally across this axis, is that there's questions about who you are and what you believe or how you act or behave in the world that is it's tied to your roots, to your home, to your family, to your, to your upbringing and to your ancestry and to family karma and things like that. And how does that affect you as a person and how you communicate, behave, think, act in the world? And then there's the other, the 9th house, where it comes down to larger beliefs about the nature of reality, the nature of truth, your larger commitments and how they show up out in the world. For example, do you belong to a church, or what party do you vote for? Things like that. So with eclipses and a lot of tension happening across these two houses this month, there's probably questions about your belief, your faith, your values and priorities around the topics of home, family, and religion and faith. And they're trying to work something out there together. And they've been trying to do so for a while. So something's culminating this month. Watch for that. Now, if we look at one of the other transits this month that's very significant, go to about the 7th or 8th of the month. And let's get Taurus back in the ascendant there. And check out Mercury retrograde in your 3rd house squaring Mars in Aries in the 12th. Be really careful about blowouts or themes of difficulty or hardship or gossip or and also the potential for just difficult news around this time. Mercury Mars can be pretty volatile. It can be pretty critical. It can be even verbally, kind of almost abusive and really reactive. So be careful of that, especially around topics that are more vulnerable or sensitive. And you're also looking at ways in which your communication patterns are healthy or unhealthy, and ways in which you may undermine yourself, or be careful of communication dynamics that undermine other people. So watch for that around the 7th and 8th of the month. And that comes back again on July 27th. Now, if we go forward to the very end of the month, there's one more transit I want to talk about. And that transit is from Venus to Neptune. Now, this transit comes in right around the 26th and 27th. And you're going to see Venus in your 2nd house of money and finances square to Neptune in the 11th house. This has to do with, your values, your time, your money, your resources, the things that you have or that you rely on, and their relation to greater groups of people or allies that you have, organizations or communities and colleagues. It's a really great energy for some kind of creative, inspired collaboration. You can also be used. You can use other people or be used in a situation like this, especially for money or finances. It's also possible that there are changes happening in a group or an organization or institution of some kind that are going to affect your financial reality. And it's also possible that different kinds of dreams or wishes or hopes for the future are changing right now as your financial reality is changing. So watch for that, and be careful that extravagant kind of glamorous energy around money can come through and leave pretty quickly this month. So just be aware of that, and try to like I've said a couple of times this month, it's like, don't go to the grocery store hungry, when Venus is square to Neptune in your financial house. So that comes in around the end of the month. All right, let's wind it back and do it all over again for Virgo. So we're going to start with July 4th, the eclipse in Capricorn on July 4th. Let's put Virgo on the ascendant. Here's Virgo rising. And if you are a Virgo rising, this is happening across your 5th and 11th house axis this month, with the lunar eclipse on July 4th in your 5th house, and then a new moon in Cancer on the 20th, and then a series of oppositions between the Cancer Sun and Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn between the 12th and the 21st. So it is a long month full of 11th to 5th house oppositions. Well, these were two very good houses traditionally. The 5th house was called the joy of Venus and the house of good fortune. The 11th was called the joy of Jupiter and the house of good spirit. But the question of the 5th house is really, what do we find pleasurable and enjoyable? Venus is really about satisfaction and pleasure and beauty and sensuality and, the kinds of things that you do, maybe you go out for dinner in the evening with a friend, you go see a play, you go dancing. It has the flavor of personal enjoyment and pleasure and happiness around it. It's also a house associated with sex, procreation, children and pregnancy, and things like that. The 11th house has more to do with our ambitions and the people and groups of people or organizations or colleagues or, sort of like positive or beneficial people or social connections. So with tension between these two houses this month, first of all, the most positive thing that can be said is that, it's a month where there may be a kind of embarrassment of riches, of different opportunities or things coming up for you that are truly enjoyable and beneficial. At the same time, there may be questions about what to prioritize, what I like, what I want, what I find desirable versus, some degree of compromise that might be necessary in order to achieve the support, help, or allegiance of other people that I need somehow in order to move forward in life. So those questions about personal satisfaction and some degree of social cooperation for the sake of goals and advancement in life, those kinds of questions are going to come. Like I see this frequently, this axis, oppositions between this axis when someone, for example, is saying, I'm a creative person and I've got a potential to work in this kind of collaborative environment, and I'm afraid that there's going to be some of my own creative direction or taste or vision that's going to get compromised. But at the same time, I know that this group of people is going to be really positive. So it's kind of an embarrassment of riches in that sense, where it's like, yeah, it's not like a devil's bargain, but it could feel a little bit like one, but generally both of these houses are going to be providing support, and there may just be some delineation of different values or priorities that come into conversation in the midst. This could have something to do also with family and the culture of family, what they provide, what they want for you, different moods or environments that could be presenting themselves to you around family, and then this feeling of needing to be more independent and careful about what you like and don't like. And family can have a big influence on us around those things. So it's a good time to really evaluate, where's my joy this month? What do I really want? What's going to make me happy? Don't compromise everything just to get a leg up somewhere, and don't be so stubborn that you can't accept help and make some degree of compromise. Those are probably the two big things we could say. Now, between the 7th and 8th, Mercury in Cancer is going to square Mars in Aries between the 11th and 8th houses. That can certainly bring up, again, the question about some degree of mental or emotional contentiousness, or the potential for a more reactive, emotionally explosive or volatile energy, judgmental, critical, difficult communications, sometimes terminating things or ending things, or quitting or something like that, or firing someone. This is the relationship between Mercury and Mars. So that between the 11th house and 8th house could bring up different kinds of agreements that you have with people or organizations or groups or people that you rely on for something, and different kinds of disagreements that are coming up or needing to analyze and kind of get to the bottom of something. Like if you're giving someone a contract and saying, like, read over this carefully, and then you have to negotiate, that's a Mercury Mars dynamic. It can be a little critical and more of an unstable energy mentally and emotionally and in communication. So be careful of that. Now, the last transit of the month, and that comes back again, by the way, on the 27th of the month, the 7th and the 8th, and then the 27th. Now we go forward this month to the very end of the month, around the 26th into the 27th, and you're going to see a big square between Venus in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces between your 10th and 7th houses. Now this can be really great in terms of just that in your career house, Venus has been there since April, bringing a lot of changes into your life around the topic of your career, your work in the world, your sense of what you want to do. And Venus retrograde can reprioritize your values in relation to your career in a pretty dramatic way, and bring new fortunate people or circumstances into your life around career. But it may have been kind of a big, long process. Now, Venus in Gemini is square to Neptune in Pisces in the seventh house, which is the place of intimate relationships. And so what's the dialogue like right now between work and love, between work and beauty, between work in the world and, sexuality? Conversations about, the differing values or differing priorities with time and energy in relationships. You may be feeling like you want to be really busy doing something creative in your career right now, but you're feeling pulled back into the emotional needs of a relationship, and that may not be entirely easy. On the other hand, it's a great time to meet people who are very attractive or creative or dreamy in some way. You want to be careful that you're discerning. This kind of Venus-Neptune dynamic can get you a lot of attention, or it can bring a lot of, almost like you can be more attractive to other people, or people can be very seductive under such a transit. And, you want to be careful that you're being very discerning, and think to yourself, don't make any huge decisions about relationships or work, probably until like the beginning of August. So that's my advice there. All right. So that's what we've got for the earth signs for this month. I hope that you guys have a great month, and that you are, able to come back and leave some comments in the comments section and tell me how the month is going. It's good to leave some now. If you've already got some, you can already see how some of these things are playing out. But as the month goes on, come back and share your stories as these transits unfold. It's really fun to hear from you guys. All right, so that's what I've got. You can stay tuned for my horoscopes in August. We'll see you soon.